Today, we're going to talk about a missing person case that is still unsolved. But before we get started, welcome to True Crime with Maneater. If you love all things true crime, including missing person cases, cold cases, and just the strange happenings of the world, you've come to the right place. Be sure to subscribe and turn on alerts so you never miss a video upload. Let's get started. Brianna Maitland was born on October 8, 1986. Her parents, Bruce and Kelly Maitland, actually raised her in rural Vermont, and for the most part, Brianna led a relatively normal life. She was even involved in jiu-jitsu lessons after school each day. But eventually, Brianna's life would change around the time she was a sophomore in high school. She actually transferred to a new high school and would move out of her mother's home. And there was no real reason for Brianna to leave her mother's place. She apparently just really liked to couch surf and just found it better than living with her mother, apparently. Kelly, Brianna's mother, would say that there was no major stressors at home. There was nothing that would make her want to move out. But eventually, Brianna would drop out of high school. It was just too hard to keep up with her schoolwork on top of just bouncing from house to house. I do want to note that it does seem strange that a teenager would just decide one day to move out of her parents' home and just decide to couch surf. Although Brianna's parents said she had a relatively normal life, I really couldn't find any information about her home life. But it does make me curious to know why she did that and why her parents effectively allowed her to do that. She would eventually move in with a friend named Jillian and would go to GED classes. And during this time, she had two jobs. She was a dishwasher at the Black Lantern Inn and a waitress at KJ's Diner. And although Brianna had previously dropped out of high school, she was very excited to get her life back on track and attend college. And although Brianna had her life back on track, something strange had happened to her. One night, Brianna would attend a lacrosse party and her friend Keely would actually attack her physically. They got into an altercation. And apparently there was no real motive for the attack, but Brianna's father said that Keely was probably jealous of the attention Brianna was getting at the party. And this wasn't just a fight. Keely actually really attacked Brianna. She even broke Brianna's nose. And Brianna apparently had a concussion after this altercation. And Brianna would go to police and press charges against her once friend. And then 3 weeks after this attack, on March 19, 2004, Brianna had actually finished her GED test and found out that she passed. And she was so excited and just basically proud of herself. Brianna was so excited that she actually called her mom and she told her, hey, I passed my test. You know, I did really well. I'm gonna go to college. And her mom would say, hey, let me treat you to lunch. Let's celebrate. So the two of them would go to lunch together. They would go shopping and run some errands. They just wanted to spend time together. Brianna's mother, Kelly, would say that Brianna was in good spirits that day. She was really proud of herself. She was happy. She talked about going to college. Brianna was really thinking about her future. But apparently during this outing with her mother, Brianna Maitland noticed something that left her feeling unnerved, though her mother doesn't know what. Brianna would basically cut their time together short and say that she had to go get ready for work. Brianna did show up to work on time at the Black Lantern Inn and completed her shift. Apparently around midnight, friends of Brianna asked if she wanted to go to a late dinner, but Brianna said no, that she had to get up for her second job really early tomorrow morning. So she got in her car and drove away, and that was the last time anyone seen Brianna Maitland again. The next day, on March 20th, 2004, police were actually called to a farmhouse. And that farmhouse was about 1 mile away from the Black Lantern Inn where Brianna was working that night. When they arrived at that farmhouse, they actually found Brianna's car, and the car was actually backed into the side of the barn. A piece of plywood was found on top of the trunk, and 2 of her paycheck stubs were found in her front seat, but there was no sign of Brianna. And 3 days later, Kelly and Bruce would actually file a missing persons case. They didn't know where their daughter was, and it was unlike her to not keep in touch with one of them. So obviously, as they're filing this missing person case, police are like, oh, is this her car? And the police would show pictures of Brianna's car to her parents, and they would identify it as Brianna's car. So basically, when police found Brianna's car, they figured she was just a runaway. And when Brianna's parents reported her missing, they realized something more sinister must have happened. Of course, they suspected foul play, but they had no real leads. And since then, nothing has really come of the case. It's still an active case. They do have DNA that was removed from the scene, but they're not being very open, obviously, about what that DNA is, and they aren't being open about the suspects. Of course, that's because it's an open case and they're actively working it, so they don't want to release too much detail. Of course, they believe that she could have been murdered or kidnapped. They said because she was only a mile away from her work where her car was found, somebody theoretically could have been waiting in her car for her when she got in there. But Brianna's father, Bruce Maitland, doesn't think this was random. In an interview, he would say, I don't think this was a random act of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. There's something going on in Brianna's life that we don't know about. She had obviously made a connection with someone that may have resulted in what happened to her. I want to note that for whatever reason, on the day that she went missing, Brianna had actually cut the shopping trip with her mother short, and nobody seems to know why. And Brianna's former friend that attacked her that night of the party has been cleared as a suspect. In 2012, police actually investigated a serial killer named Israel Keys as a potential suspect. He had committed numerous murders in Vermont and New York, so it wasn't far off saying that he could have done this, but he was eventually ruled out. So this case bothers me for a few reasons. I'm still kind of hung up on why this young girl would move out of her parents' house. There had to be some sort of tension or some reason why she wanted out. I'm not blaming her parents by any means. It just doesn't sit well with me. And that shopping trip on the day that she went missing, I do believe something strange had happened to Brianna, whether somebody was following her or stalking her. I feel like she must have known that something was just not right. And maybe she just didn't want to make a big deal of it. Maybe she thought that she was being paranoid, so she didn't tell anybody. But I feel like somebody had been following her closely. And really, I believe the best theory is that somebody was in her car waiting for her. Her car was only found a mile away from her work, and it was backed up and hidden at a farmhouse. So either somebody was in the car when she got in, or maybe somebody she knew saw her on the road and she pulled over to talk to them and something happened. It is a very strange case, but apparently police do have DNA, so I'm very hopeful that it will be solved soon. But that's it for today, guys. If you like this video or any other video on my channel, be sure to subscribe and turn on alerts so you never miss video upload. If you have a suggestion for a case, pop in the comments below and I'll get to as many of them as possible. In the meantime, check out some other videos on my channel and I'll see you next time.